Thank you for watching this video. Before we get started, I'd just like to shout out my channel on the side, Cable Classics. This is me and a group of some of my best friends watching movies late at night, and then I edit them together into short little highlight reels of the funniest and most entertaining parts, or some insight. So check it out. We've done Deep Blue Sea, Roadhouse, Fear, The Howling, Excalibur, and Sylvester Stallone's Over the Top, and there's plenty more to come. I'd really like this channel to reach a certain sub count and start to get a continued fan base, so if you can support it in any way, I'd really appreciate it, and please check out its Reddit page. Thank you. Oh boy. Here we fucking go. Holy crap. I guess it was inevitable at this point. What was gonna happen? Was there an alternative universe? A multiverse? Some byproduct? Another wavelength? A Donnie Darko portal that would have led this to any other outcome? Would there have been a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes rating? Would there have been a record opening weekend of 200 million? Blame COVID, blame quality control, blame Mickey, blame whoever you want. Blame Brie Larson even if you want to. But there just isn't much to say here except Marvel is officially, like, on a major decline. It's not a thing where we're talking about it anymore and it's like, well, there's a way it can bounce back or if they change a few things. It's officially like major decline to where you can't cope about it anymore. You can't kind of add context. I even remember 6 months ago, a year ago, people were still sort of trying to rationalize what was happening with Marvel, in particular with the Marvel's film. The last few years being a fan of the box office, or particularly a few years ago pre-COVID when it was, box office was kind of peaking, all the people that always leaned on Captain Marvel making 1.1 billion is always infuriated me all these years. Like, whenever you're like, yeah, that movie kind of sucks, it's mid, I don't think they did a great job with the character, even though I like the filmmakers, they made Half Nelson, Ryan Fleck and Anna Bodwin, very good filmmakers. Sugar's a very good movie. I didn't like the film very much, but it's like, well, it made 1.1 billion. And then, it wasn't like that had anything to do with Infinity War and it coming around that time or anything like that. But still, even if you look at the reviews for that film, it was like Thor 1 level reviews, nothing great. And obviously the character is not endeared. And then you bring in Miss Marvel, and then that other chick that was in a show or a movie. And you get this, where right now the tracking for this film is awful. It went from 75 million to 80 million 3 weeks ago to around 60 million. Some tracking services have lowered their estimates to 50 million plus for the film. Okay, so they have some history here. So the Eternals had a worldwide debut at 160. Black Widow was around 148. So they're projecting this to have an international opening of $140 million. This is probably only going to make $450, $500 million. If it opens like that, there's no way that the film can overperform unless it somehow blows up in an international market, which, to be fair, is possible. We never know. Let's just look at some of the comments. When Marvel movies are good, they're really fun. When Marvel movies are forgettable, they're really forgettable. Sub 48 million weekend. What could back this film up, though, is just reviews, word of mouth, reception. Because if we've looked at the recent MCU trajectory, the only films recently that have done particularly well was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which still didn't do as well as the previous film in that franchise, but it made money. And generally, it seemed like fans liked a lot of the movie. But if we look at Ant-Man, it made $476 million. That's lower. That's a worse final gross than the previous two Ant-Man movies. That's what makes it embarrassing. It made less than Ant-Man 1. And then you have things like the Eternals or Black Widow that bombed, but people blame COVID. Spider-Man No Way Home was a big hit. Doctor Strange 2 made 950 million. Black Panther Wakanda Forever made about 850 million. But generally the reviews have been kind of okayish for a lot of those movies. In particular, like Black Panther 2 got like okay reviews. It wasn't critically acclaimed like the previous film. This film, on the other hand, is just getting like bad reviews. This is Ant-Man 3 all over again, where people are criticizing the CGI, they're criticizing the pacing, they're criticizing the coherence, and it's just getting like middling reviews because it's like just a mindless little spectacle getting released. A narrative and visual jumble, and the clearest evidence yet that maybe we don't need some of Marvel's product in theaters or on streaming at all times. A solid contender for the worst Marvel film yet. Call it being chopped up in post production or just a Marvel studio problem, but The Marvels is far from approaching anything marvelous. The Marvels isn't the franchise dooming disaster that social media scuttlebutt and the film's lackluster marketing have alluded to, but it will not save Kevin Feige's billion-dollar baby anytime soon. Except for a few very funny scenes set to memory, except for a very funny scene set to memory, the emblematic theme of the musical Cats, this is a bland movie, barely a kickoff for something presumed to be much bigger. The Marvels definitely stumbles with a few important elements like its early pacing, but the risk the Marvel takes succeeds far more than they backfire, which is exactly the sort of promising energy the larger franchise has been lacking lately. There's a place in the MCU for whack job silliness, but in the Marvels, the bits of absurd comedy tend to feel strained because they clash with the movie's mostly utilitarian tone. If you thought the Eternals and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania were low points for the limping Marvel Cinematic Universe, strap in for the ride to abject misery that is the Marvels. 0 out of 4. I mean, this is just, it's just bad. There's really no way to spin it. The movie's gonna bomb. It's gonna get bad reviews. Brie Larson's career, what the hell happened? What the fuck happened to Brie Larson after she won that Oscar? Just Fast X, terrible Nissan commercials. I mean, she was great. I was a Brie Larson fan. What happened? I don't know. Like, Hollywood ruined the progress of her career. This movie, obviously, people aren't interested in it. I know a lot of people are going to get attacked. Unfortunately, a lot of the arguments that used to, the feminist arguments about, men just don't like strong female characters, men don't like these, it's really started to backfire in the last couple of years. I hope that Hollywood is noticing this, that trying to scapegoat out of a poor performing blockbuster that doesn't get great reviews. The Little Mermaid comes to mind. They keep trying to use these 2016, 2017 tactics, and they're just not working anymore. You can no longer approach it from that angle and say, well, no, actually, the film's great. You guys just don't like it. There's, racist people or sexist people out there that are complaining. And that might be partially true to some degree, but they always exaggerate it when the fan reception isn't there. And particularly with Marvel now, it's like, I don't know what they're going to be able to do with this stuff. Like, when these movies don't do well, I think She-Hulk was a turning point, and um, Moon Knight, and as the show started to come out and they were less popular, I don't think you can like really. It's hard if you're an MCU fan right now. I feel bad for MCU fans. If you're still on this, it's hard to argue like against the negatives now. It's hard to like be like, well, no, it's actually great, and this is why everyone's wrong, or it's not doing well because of certain negatives. You really have no excuses to use because Marvel's like been given everything. You have the biggest marketing campaigns. You have the most name, notoriety, and brand and IP and everything. So the only thing that can be blamed is like just the quality and interest that people have in the IPs. And I think this just kind of validates a lot of the feelings people had about Captain Marvel a few years ago. That's why I think this is important. People weren't just complaining for the sake of it. They had a point. And this character and her role in this universe and Brie Larson playing her, turns out a lot of people don't give a shit.